then the biggest thing became, looking at what would a separation look like? What would that be like? And so much fear and sadness came up, of course, because this is someone who I've spent the last 5, almost 6 years with. Hi, everybody. This episode has been a long time coming, and I finally feel ready to sit down and talk about what's been going on for the last couple of months. So from listening to my podcast episodes or checking out my content, you may have seen that I was in a long-term relationship. So my partner Brian and I were together for 6 years, and we did just separate. So I want to talk a little bit about that today, because my work is all about being in healthy relationships, getting to that point where you're ready to be in a healthy relationship. So I was in a healthy relationship, and all of a sudden I am separated. So I am now single. So I want to explore a little bit about what happened and, what led me to the separation, how the separation is going, and where I'm headed to next. My partner Brian and I were in a relationship for almost 6 years. We met in 2017 and were engaged to be married this year. Actually, 2023 was the goal. Actually, it was 2022, but we postponed. Maybe that was some foreshadowing going on there. So we met in 2017, and we had a really good relationship. He was and is a great companion, a fantastic friend. He's hilarious. He's super intelligent, financially savvy, athletic, just a wonderful, well-rounded person. And we had 5-6 great years, lots of adventures. We went through COVID together. That definitely, there was definitely some core moments that really molded us together. And COVID was one of those things full of challenges, but at the end of it, we seemed stronger for it. And I say seemed for a reason. One of the things in our relationship that we did really well was communicate. So we had excellent communication. Everything was always addressed really quickly, and we were able to talk about it. And I don't think we ever really had, we had some fights or disagreements, but it never lasted really past a day. One or the other would apologize if that need was there, and it was always just talked about, unpacked, and we were able to refocus and just get on with our life. So that was really awesome. I was very good at asking for what I needed, very good at communicating any kind of desires, boundaries, anything like that. I was pretty open, and I had to learn that. So I didn't enter the relationship with all of this knowledge. I learned that. And I mean, the last 5 years, for me personally, I've grown an insane amount. I would say more than any other years combined. So just so much growth. I really unpacked my inner stuff, my stories, my beliefs. Brian was a really good partner to grow and learn with. He was always open and receptive, and so we grew a lot together. For him as well, he just kind of jumped on board with my self-awareness, my growth. He just always kind of kept up and did his own thing with a men's lens. So there was a lot of things that worked well in our relationship. People would admire us by how we were with each other, how we communicated with each other, and how we were able to solve disagreements and arguments in our relationship. So that was always really good. But all is not what it seems. And so if the relationship was so good, why am I now separated? Why did we break up? And like I said, we were engaged. We got engaged in 2020 and weren't in a rush to get married. And then with COVID and stuff, it was almost like, it was pretty logical that we weren't getting married. So it was like 2020 we got engaged and then COVID happened. So 2020, 21 were out anyway. We knew that and we wanted some time to be engaged as well. And then 2022 came around and we would talk about the wedding and then it would be like, we would settle on something, but then either me or Brian would be like, no, I don't like that, or let's get eloped, or let's have a big wedding. Like, we went back and forth and changed our mind all the time, but then we'd never settle on anything. We're like, all right, we'll address it in the future. So I definitely noticed that there wasn't a rush to get married, which I find okay. However, it was the third year of being engaged, and our family started asking questions. And I realized that with the getting married part, it just wasn't coming easily to me. It wasn't like a hell yeah, let's get married, let's have this party, let's join. I was always kind of neutral, like, well, I don't really need to get married. I know it was important to Brian. I think traditionally, and also he wanted to make that commitment to me, which was lovely. For me personally, it was never anything that I really was like, yes, let's do it. Let's get this thing done. And at first I thought it was only my preference. However, early this year, Brian really decided to take the bull by the horns and be like, we're going to get married. Like, I'm going to plan this. We're going to do this. And I'm tired of kind of waiting. Like, let's do it. And so I noticed when he said that I was like, whoa. And I really felt myself put the brakes on, like, uh-oh. So that was a sign that, like, it wasn't what I had expected. And I felt like that's not how I want to feel when my partner wants to organize the wedding. I want to be like, hell yeah, let's get it done. You know, I'm super excited to be your wife, and that just wasn't there. And but there was definitely other things. And in the later stages of 2022, doubts started to creep in, and I was always very certain of our relationship and about where we were going. However, in late 2022, that started to shift. And what I noticed was that there was some big key incompatibilities between us. And I'm sure most of you have heard of love languages. I love the love languages. If you haven't, I'm sure you've heard of it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be listening to this podcast, I don't think. But if you haven't, or if you've never done the test, just type into Google love languages test or whatever and take the quiz and see what your love language is. So the love language is like the way that you express to others that you love them, and the way that you best receive love, like the way that you know others love you. So there's 5 love languages. One of them is words of affirmation, so using your words, like telling someone you love them. Then gifts, so gift giving, gift receiving. Acts of service, doing things for others. Quality time, so that's pretty straightforward, spending time with others. And physical touch. So hugs, kisses, that kind of thing. So I noticed that there was some key incompatibilities between Brian and I. One of them being our love languages were similar but different. So my top love language is physical touch. And physical touch placed last on Brian's list. So very low need for physical touch for Brian, very high for me. Brian placed really high on words of affirmations, very low on my list. So with the love languages in a healthy partnership, you will know each other's love language. You will know how the other responds to receiving love, and you will do your best to accommodate the person by, kind of going outside of what is natural for you, but providing for your partner. And Brian always did his best to provide the physical touch for me. Definitely didn't come natural. And I also did my best to ask for what I needed in that department. So asking for hugs, asking for, that kind of thing. So that was definitely different. And I also noticed we both have quality time as a high love language. I think we both placed it like second or something like that. However, and this is also interesting, what is our definition of quality time? So the way that I saw that Brian kind of defined quality time was, as long as he's in the same space as me, in the same house, he knows I'm there, maybe he can hear me or knows I'm upstairs doing whatever and he's downstairs, that's quality time for him. It's just being in the same proximity. For me, quality time is like sit next to me with our legs touching, or like hugging me, or just looking at each other, or doing, like, that's quality time, or going out and doing something together. So for me, it's always doing something together for me is quality time. So in that way as well, I did the best to ask for what I needed in that department, and Brian did as well, because he actually needs a lot of alone time, a lot of space, so he did his best to take care of that. So those were two key things. And I also noticed that I was not feeling energized anymore by being together. So when I'm with my partner, I want to feel like when we're done doing something together, whether we're out or in or whatever, I want to, during it as well, and before it, pretty much, I want to be excited. I want to feel energized, like, hell yeah, let's do something. And then during it, it's like, hell yeah, I get to do this with you. This is awesome. And afterwards, it's like, hell yeah, that was so good. And now that was just wonderful. So that's how I want to feel energized. And I just wasn't feeling that anymore. And I could see from him as well, definitely just he was not energized when we spent time together. The energy wasn't there from either one of us. So at the end of the day, it's my grandma's grandfather clock. At the end of the day, I came to the realization that if Brian is himself, like authentic Brian, 100%, and I am myself, authentic Yvonne, 100%, one of us is unhappy, one of us isn't getting their needs met, because our authentic selves, if we're to be 100% ourselves, together, we're not compatible. So it really came down to this incompatibility. There was other things, of course, as well. These are just a couple things that I mentioned. And I came to this fork in the road, and I took it. Oh, what is that? I want to say Yogi Bear, but that's not true. Yogi Berra or whatever, that baseball player. Anyway, I probably butchered his name. So when I recognize these things, when I recognize those differences, before I made the decision that I needed to leave the relationship, I looked at it from a point of, okay, well, what do I need to do that I can provide these things for me? Which is a really healthy mindset. Like, I can't expect my partner to take care of my needs all the time. I need to be able to provide these things for me. Even things like physical touch. So I was like, all right, well, I'll sit here and hug myself, or I'll give myself these things, or I can get my hugs and my affection. I can get it from my friends. I can ask my partner to give me a hug. So all these things, I was like, I need to provide this for me. I need to figure out ways that I can do this for myself. And I did a really good job with that, even for physical touch. Quality time, I was like, I need to embrace my friends more. I need to create quality time elsewhere. I need to get my connection elsewhere with people that also value connection and quality time and physical touch. So I did a really good job with that. So that is a good thing to ask yourself if you're ever in a situation where your needs are not being met by the other person. Well, it's not their responsibility to meet your needs. It is your own responsibility to get your needs met. So how can you provide those things? All those things you want from your partner, how can you provide that for yourself? Yeah, so I I went through all that where I provided for myself. And for a while, I was like, okay, that's good. And then I just came to a realization that, yes, I need to provide these things for myself. However, I can expect support in all these areas from my partner. I can expect my partner to provide these types of things for me as well. And again, my partner did the best he could. Brian did the best he could to provide those things for me. But again, it came down to an incompatibility. So at the end of the day, I knew for a lifetime, Brian was not going to meet my needs. And that was a heavy realization. Like, I'm not going to get my needs met in this relationship, even if I step up for myself. It's not going to happen. So do I continue with this relationship, which is stable, which is loving, which is a great companionship? I laugh. I have a great time. We have great conversations. We have a lot of the same values. Do I continue this relationship knowing that these areas, those areas of like the physical touch, the quality time, the energy, those types of things, that deep connection, I'm not going to have my needs met. And I did not want to do that. So imagining being together for another 10 years and not having these aspects fulfilled, and also knowing I wouldn't be able to be my authentic self, or both of us together wouldn't be able to be our authentic selves and have it be harmonious, I knew that I could not continue. I also knew that for Brian, I knew that I wasn't the best partner because he values his independence and his freedom and his alone time so much. And I value connection so much. So huge incompatibility. And for Brian to feel like himself, he needs that time for himself. And I know every man does. However, his need for that alone time and being kind of separate while together is it's another level that I'm just not able to fulfill for him. And for him to be his authentic self and like feel at ease and totally comfortable in his home, he needs a partner that's equally just happy to do their own thing and not put such heavy emphasis on like the physical touch or quality time. And then I recognized, so my needs for these aspects are stronger than my need to stay in this relationship. And then the biggest thing became, looking at what would a separation look like? What would that be like? And so much fear and sadness came up, of course, because this is someone who I've spent the last 5, almost 6 years with, like living in the same house, being together all the time. He's family pretty much. And just there's an intimacy there that's yeah, it's just scary to think about, okay, how would this look like if I'm not if I'm not with this person anymore? So that was super scary, really, really scary. And also, what will my finances look like? What will all this, like everything we've built up and created together, what will that turn into? And is he going to leave? Is he going to go back to Newfoundland where he's from? And that brought up a whole bunch of things from my childhood, like abandonment wounds when my mom left when I was 16. So part of me was like, oh my God, I'm going to lose the most important person to me. So that it brought up a whole bunch of stuff from the past. And all of a sudden I had to navigate that. So then I started to retract again and be like, oh, well, I think I can make it work. I think it's okay. Because it came down to, like, on the one hand, I had the kind of the safety, the security, the attachment, familiarity, everything with Brian on the one hand. And that's like, yeah, that's safe, that's comfortable. And then on the other hand, I had all, the possibility of what's next, like the freedom of being by myself, the liberation that comes from that, the joy, the fulfillment, the connection, the depth I could experience if I left this relationship. So these two things were fighting, like it was the safety and comfort versus joy and liberation. So they were in a huge conflict, and it took me a while to get past that. So yeah, all this fear came up, and I really got to a point where I was like, which one of these, joy and liberation and freedom, or safety and security and comfort, which one can I live without? And not even without, which one can I provide for myself, and which one do I need to go get? And I came to the realization that, okay, I am not 6 years old anymore. I'm not 16 when my mom left. I am an adult woman. I am 37 years old. I've been on this planet for a while. I am street smart. I know what I'm doing. I have extreme self-awareness. I am emotionally intelligent. I have so many tools and support systems in place that I can provide that safety and security for myself. I can do that. So if Brian's not here to give me that in this home and this familiarity, I can step up for myself and give myself that. However, the joy, the liberation, the freedom, the intimacy and connection, that I was not willing to, I guess, suppress. And once I made that decision that I can provide the safety and security for myself, that I don't require Brian to do that for me, I was ready to transition the relationship. And as soon as I did, like all the anxiety that I had been feeling around it, about having that conversation, because those are tough conversations to have. As soon as I made the decision, as soon as the conversation was had, all the anxiety went away, and I just felt peaceful. I felt at peace. The conversation and everything that came afterwards was just an incredible display of how far I've come, and also how far Brian has come, and how much we've grown and how much we care about each other. The whole thing was just so anticlimactic and peaceful and loving and caring and open and honest. I am just so impressed with how it went. We both shared our feelings, our truths, and really went through this whole process of transitioning our relationship to a friendship, just really gently and lovingly. And we both wanted to take time. We didn't want to just from one day to the next, him move out or whatever. We both wanted it to be a gentle transition that took some time. And so actually it took 2 months, which I think by the end we were both, we would have been okay just having 1 month of a gentle transition. By the end we were like, all right, this can happen now. because we had done a lot of processing together, a lot of grieving together, planning together, all this stuff. Even though it was very sad to make the decision and to know that, okay, this is now the end of this book. We both knew and felt and stated that it was the right thing. Yeah, this was the healthiest separation that I've ever experienced. In the past, I often would just cut things off and then cut them out of my life. I am not in touch with any of my exes, really. I just always cut it off and goodbye, see you later. But with Brian, it was just, there's so much appreciation there and love that's not an option. Yeah, it was just a really healthy transition. We're in communication about, how it's going for both of us, because that's another thing. When you've spent 5 or 6 years with a person that you deeply care about, you want to know that they're doing good. You want to know that their new life is going well and that they're settling in, and maybe they're not. So you want to have that conversation about, how, if they're not doing so well, because you know each other, especially after that time, probably better than most people know you. So that was really important to me, to have those conversations after separation as well. Another big part of this separation is now, because with my work, the women I work with are women that want to be in a healthy relationship, but they're super scared to start dating or to even meet people, to put themselves out there. So here I am, newly single, a little bit in the same boat. So I'm just very excited to actually go on this journey with the women that I work with, and just have a different point of view now, again, being single and starting to date and meet people. I'm very excited for that part of it. I learned so much. I've prepared in so many ways. I'm so much more knowledgeable than I was 5 years ago. I know what I want. I know how to set boundaries. I know what I'm looking for. It all feels very different. It all feels very exciting. So I'm just excited to go down this road eventually, whenever that's going to happen, to start meeting people. I mean, I'm already in that space where I just feel so open and ready. So wherever there's like joy, connection, and love, like that's where I'm going. And I'm just so excited for that. I'm so excited to see what's next, to see what kind of connections and people I'm going to meet on my journey, and to see all of my work over the years, all of my self-awareness, all of my growth come to fruition in this next step. And so I'm just very excited for that. And maybe I'll be doing some documenting about what I learn in my dating journey. We'll see. But for now, I'm focusing on just having a great time over here and focusing on what's next for me. Although I already know what's next for me, right now I'm super excited about the podcast. I'm super excited about my work. I'm super excited about friends, connections, nature, everything. So life is good, and I also know it's good for Brian. He's having a great time reconnecting with his roots, with his friends, doing what he loves. He's written some amazing poetry, by the way, over the last kind of 5 years since we got together, and he is publishing that. So if you want to check out my ex's Brian's poetry, he's an amazing writer. So if you want to check him out, his handle is Brian Duffett, BryanDuffett. Look him up. I'll probably share some of his stuff on my page anyway. So before I finish today, I just want to let you know that if you've had a breakup or a separation that was super painful in the past, and it might be keeping you from kind of re-entering that arena of dating and relationships, just know that the amount of growth that you've done since you last were in that relationship, like that is going to prevent you from ever encountering something like that again. So it doesn't mean that pain and that heartbreak and that shit show is going to repeat, because it's not. And I'm a great example of that. You know, the way I handled breakups in the past and the way that I handled this one. It was a world of difference. So, of course, every separation or breakup is painful, and no one likes pain, but it's part of life, and what's on the other side is just incredible. So if you're holding yourself back because of fear of a breakup or a separation, you're also holding yourself back from joy, connection, love, incredible possibilities, an insane amount of growth. Like the amount of growth that I've done in the last 5 years with Brian by my side, I would not have done on my own. You need a partner to mirror the things that come to the surface. You need a partner to help you heal that stuff. So yes, you'll prevent pain. Yes, you will. That's nice. But you're also going to prevent all these incredible, amazing, like life force giving things. So I really encourage you to go for joy, to go for love, to go for connection, to go for growth, to go for transformation, evolution, and all that good stuff. And if you want some help with that, of course, I got to plug my program here. It's called Wholehearted Love. It's an 8-week one-on-one program where we get you to a point where you feel open and ready to attract a healthy relationship with a trustworthy partner. We dive deep. We look at some of the patterns and behaviors you have that might be preventing you from getting into healthy relationships, from choosing healthy partners. We look at those, we transform them so that when you go out there, you're going to attract the right person and you're going to just have an incredible experience. There's many more details on this program. If you have any questions, you can message me or check out my website, lifecoachyvonne.com. Where you'll also find all of my podcast episodes that you can listen to, or you can find them on any of your podcast providers. I don't know what you call them, apps, whatever, I don't know. Hope you enjoyed this episode. For those of you that are watching the video, I hope you enjoyed my setup here and almost little office. I love being here. It's so nice, and I'm actually looking out onto the street where I grew up, the little childhood street where I grew up. So so I just feel love and gratitude. I don't feel heartbreak. I do have sad moments, of course, which is normal, and those are those little parts that, the part of me that was abandoned or felt like she was abandoned. I wasn't really abandoned, but that abandonment wound that comes up sometimes, or the grief, the part that's really sad about, losing someone that I'm really familiar with. But mainly it's joy and optimism and just gratitude. So hopefully I have been able to wire some of that your way. And thank you for listening. Thanks for tuning in, and see you next time on Dating Greatly. Bye.